Welcome to the 320 Podcast, where we encourage you to reach for the immeasurably more life with Christ. From discussions on Scripture, to poetic messages, to dreaming big with Jesus, you will enjoy a variety of episodes brought to you by Shelly Wilson Ministries. To find out more about Shelly Wilson Ministries and the many resources available to you, please visit our website at www.shellywilsonministries.org.
So you are all part of the Dream Big support group here.
Mm-hmm.
Paula, you're the newer of the group
Yes.
as far as coming over the years. So that'll be an interesting mix in the group. You're all at different stages of your dreams, yet you're all in a frustrating place.
So true.
So,
Amen.
and I'm gonna, before I have you introduce yourself, let me give the audience a disclaimer that I've already told them to be brutally honest, because while God will encourage us in the room, He will encourage them, because probably somebody needs to hear, wow, okay, I'm not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not out of the will of God. Like, this is just part of the process.
Yeah.
So, Paula, introduce yourself.
Okay, so my name is Paula Rambo, and I don't know what's important for people to know. I will say I've been following Jesus since 2012, and it's been quite a journey, and a good journey.
I didn't understand that.
Y'all, I turned my phone off. I'm not real sure why it's doing that. It wants to introduce me.
This is real life.
Exactly. This is live. So I'm going to try to turn it off like for real. But, you know, back in 2013, God spoke to me and He said, if you'll trust me, I'll give you the desires of your heart. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be real honest with you. I don't think I didn't even know what those desires were at that time. You know, I thought it looked very different than what He's doing in my life.
Right.
Because I had buried so many dreams that I felt like I just totally messed them up.
Yeah.
And wasn't worthy
Right.
of them anymore. And so now I find myself in this place where He's unfolding right before me that He really is giving me the desires of my heart. But it looks nothing like what I thought it was going to. And as you said earlier, it can be very frustrating because God definitely has a sense of humor, and I feel like He's taking me one direction and then bam, we're going another direction, like a total 180.
Yeah.
But I've always had I've always had a passion for horses, and the connection and the healing that comes from those beautiful animals. Mm-hmm. And as long as I can remember, I always wanted to do something with horses. Mm-hmm. And that was the thing that I never thought I would. I thought I really just messed that up.
Wow.
And so He's opened an opportunity for me to actually be able to not only work with horses on a daily basis, but to build a ministry using
Amen.
those horses. And it looks nothing like I thought it would. And
course.
it's very humbling.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know if that was the kind of
that's
introduction that you wanted,
No,
but
that's
that's
good, 'cause
kind
that
of
gives them
where I am.
That's good. That gives them a little insight into where you'll be coming from.
Yes.
When we start talking about frustrations. So Nancy.
I am Nancy Ludlum, and right now I am operating in 2 different ministries. Really, the crazy part of it is I have a major passion for flowers, always have had, and that was my career. And so now it's like part of me is torn to go down that road and start pursuing doing florals for people for their homes and businesses, for events, weddings, that type of thing. But then again, I have a passion for teaching, and I think that probably outweighs by a long shot the floral aspect of things. I did not know that I would get sucked into teaching children, which I have had an absolute riot doing that. I think the birthday party that one of our
Some of us
cohorts.
saw that coming.
I know.
I'll just leave that there.
Yeah. But I have had so much fun with these girls, and I've had a few of them in my classes, but it's just, I don't know, it's just such a treat. I used to be Mrs. Craft lady at a church that we attended for several years, and so that was my bag, and I was the one that brought all this stuff together and had a committee, and we decided on what it was and all that stuff, and then we had the kids, and of course I used to tease and torment them before I'd let them come into the room and get creative. But I guess my passion is just being able to see the beauty that's inside of a person. And I think one of my favorite things about the whole process is when somebody comes into class and says, I don't have a creative bone in my body and I can't do anything. I've never been able to be creative, blah, blah, blah. And when they leave the room, they're just elated because they've actually been able to do something. So it's an encouragement, and I know that's one of my giftings. After going through a divorce and just a whole mess of double betrayal and a chaos 2 years ago, it has been really hard for me to stay grounded, I guess is what I want to say, because of the emotional upheaval. I find that it is sometimes overwhelming when things begin to happen. So I've been trying to just be patient and sit back and let God do the work to where I'm not forcing things. And I think that's where my biggest struggle is knowing when I need to step in and pursue and when I need to just step back and let God do his job. So, and I've been a Christian for, oh, good grief, many, many years. I think it was, 83, since 83. So, yeah. And I love it. I wouldn't go back.
Amen. Amen. Jessica, I wish everybody could see the look on our faces as we go from person to person, because Jessica.
So Nancy's wearing a shirt. It says, "I'm only talking to Jesus today."
That's right,
For those who don't know, that's what my face says. But Shelly thought we should do this podcast today.
Yeah, because I said, because I knew you were frustrated, and I was like, I think we need to have a on-air counseling
And
session.
all morning, I told myself, I do not want to go. I do not want to go. We're being honest.
Yep.
Yeah, we're being
I do
honest.
not want to go, because you're on a roller coaster and there's highs and there's lows.
Yes.
And when you're in the lows, you don't want to share.
Right.
You just want to sit there and pout in your low spot.
Yeah.
And just pout. I mean, I'm a pouter anyway, so, I've just been pouting all morning. I've been pouting for a few weeks, actually. But, so anyways, I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Jessica. And
She's actually our comedian, too, believe it or not.
Canadians have low spots, too.
That's right.
So I have been on a journey for the last 7 or so years where he placed desire in my heart to help people with end-of-life issues, all the way from medical end-of-life to funeral details. I went back to school. I was a respiratory therapist. Went back to school, became a funeral director. So I went from helping them breathe to putting them 10 foot under, And
Yeah.
I've been on a journey. I was in the respiratory field. Then he put me in a funeral home. Then he put me back in the respiratory field. And then he put me kind of back in the funeral industry with this end-of-life planning book.
Right.
So it's been back and forth. And that's frustrating, too, because I know where I'm supposed to be, but I keep having to fall back to the old. And so that's where I'm at. And I have this book. Shelly helped me publish a book. It's called End of Life Planning, and it's like a planning guide. It helps people walk through decisions they should make. And we published that, got it out. I started a podcast. to talk about end of life issues, and slow and steady wins the race, I guess. That's what we're saying over
That's-
here.
That is
That's
exactly
true.
what I'm
So-
fixing to say.
So it's been slow and steady. I've learned along the way. But 7 years, you feel like it should have gone by fast. You feel like you should be further along sometimes, you know? So that's where I am. Super cheerful. I hope everyone is as cheerful as I am today.
All right.
We all have those days, though.
So here's the thing. We promised here, and I know you didn't want to come, although I knew you would be in for it and be fine once you got here. But here's the thing. So if we don't put the struggle to work, then we feel defeated.
Right.
But if we can at least put it to work on behalf of other people, then even the struggle has some good in it. So there are some things too. You say 7 years, and I'm like, man, I've said those words. Y'all know my story. Some of the listeners do, some don't. You know, I started in music ministry. That was all I wanted to do. All my dream was, since I was 5, was to sing. 10 years ago, you know, we have a building down the road that lasts 1 year. It took all my money. It took all my strength. It took all my weight. I was down to 90 pounds by the time it was the worst experience in ministry I've ever had. Lost everything, everybody, my own identity, everything. I had preached to everybody. I couldn't even preach to myself. 10 years later, I crawled out of that season for 10 years, and I'm still, y'all know, you can tell it in everything I write. We'll have weeks where the grief comes and the sting of memories or whatever. Yet I was thinking about this for y'all today of going I think back then I thought the dream was one thing. And it was when I closed the doors of that building, the Lord said I wasn't building a ministry, I was building a leader. And I had to learn the hard way, how was I going to relate to the world hurting, right? Like, I didn't know about grief. You know what I mean? I mean, I did, but I've always been hypersensitive to people in pain, even as a high school girl, young girl. My mother would tell you I couldn't stand to see anybody eating by themselves. It was just, the pastor in me was always there, you know, but it wasn't till the hard season that now I'm like, okay, now I'm seeing it, because there was a book, I should probably make all y'all read it, called The Dream Giver by Bruce Wilkinson. And I read it in the beginning of ministry. I cried through every page like he was speaking right to me. And this is what I wrote down when I heard y'all talking. The moral of that story, and something that's said in that book, is your big dream will fill a big need. Well, back then, how was I going to do that as a singer? Not that I couldn't through music, but there was more to it than me performing. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But I didn't understand what this meant. To me, the big dream was music. To God, the big dream was shepherding people. Who knew, right? So the whole 10-year process was a roller coaster, Jessica, I almost felt like I had such a personality disorder at times of I'd be up and then down, up and then down. Not that it can't still be that way. But the roller coaster ride is part of it. This won't be your last. So because even when you get to where you know you're going, there's still, you got to kick the giants off the land then.
Yeah.
Right? So the battles, you still fight the battle after you cross over into that promised land. So you guys have all had different frustrations the last few weeks, and that's what I wanted to share with people, because while you see glimpses, when I look at y'all, I see progress.
Good to know.
It's an encouragement.
Let's say work in progress.
We need T-shirts.
We do need T-shirts, Jess. Okay.
I gotta work on it.
I mean, listen. I mean, since you're more in the valley than the other two today, let me just start with you because, you know, I see the depth of that struggle and pain, you know. And I forgot where I was absolutely going with that. You said something about a T-shirt. What was it? Oh, progress. Because here's the thing. When you started, there was no book. When you started, there was no podcast. When you started, see, so I look at you and I go, there has been progress and in your process.
Right, there has been progress. You just have in your head that it's going to be easier than it is.
Oh, so
Go
true.
faster.
It's going to be easier.
Yeah.
Because it's God's dream.
Yeah.
And God's in it.
So he's going to make it easy.
And I'm pretty sure growing up in church, I heard that. If God's in it, it's going to, you know, like, I think Christians don't they don't biblically always preach the way they should. They kind of make you feel like, I'm just as bad. Once you're a believer, things are going to get better. That prosperity gospel starts
Right.
leading you.
It is
And,
misleading.
you know,
How about this one? Where God guides, God provides.
Oh, yeah.
Can
Big
I
one.
just bury that one? Because here's the thing. Yes, he will, but it does not mean he will beforehand.
yes.
I operated, y'all. I'll probably be taken to the my own cross for this comment. For 2 years, the Lord kept telling me to print magazines when I had no money. And he would keep sending me credit cards with no interest. No one would tell me to do that. Trust me. Yet I kept following until one day they were all paid off. But you see, in the world's, God can do it how he wants to do it.
Right.
But we are all waiting for him to provide ahead of time before we take a step forward. That's not what he did with Abraham. He said, go to a place I will tell you pretty much when you get there that you're there. But we're teaching people, well, it's only God if all the money comes in advance.
Right.
Yes.
That's what,
I can't
That's
tell you
not
how many
true.
times I've heard that.
Yeah.
Right. I
That's
mean,
not
you,
true.
And then it makes you
hear
question everything.
Right.
Am I really hearing God? Is this really what I'm supposed to be doing?
Right.
Maybe I just need to throw my hands up and go get a real job.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
said that a lot of times.
Oh, yeah. I say that too to myself. And I mean, I'm not destitute, but I keep thinking, okay, the bank account goes cha-ching, cha-ching,
Right.
cha-ching. And if I stay out of the craft stores, I do pretty good. But the problem is then I get these inspirations, I guess, from God. I don't know where else they come from because it's almost like I have epiphanies. You know, I mean, it's just like light bulbs going off over my head about how to make something. And then my brain starts in and it just starts deciphering how to do it and step by step. And then I'm typing it all up and then I have to go make a sample. And it's like, okay, God, what am I supposed to do with all this stuff? I mean, I was looking in my office where I've been working most all summer because it's been so hot. And I've got stuff that I have made that just sitting here, hanging on the wall, whatever. And I'm like, I'm running out of space, Lord. I got to figure out something different. So that's where I'm at right now, just trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do with all this stuff?
But see, here's the thing. What I hear when you say that is there's not idleness.
No?
No.
He is doing something, right? But
Right.
you're looking for the end game. Same with me 10 years ago. I wanted girls in that building that died to do love letters.
Yeah.
Never happened.
Yep. I remember you
10
talking
years
about
later,
that.
we have a room here full of love letters I can't keep up with hardly. Thousands of postcards that I made with song titles and all these things. Never used. Today they're used 10 years later. He was making them for...
In
See, I think
advance,
sometimes we, especially if we have a prophetic gifting, which all y'all do in this room, we see ahead of time. and we don't understand we're seeing ahead of time.
Yeah.
I'm not saying your dream, don't freak out, Jessica, it's 10 years down the road. But I'm saying he's in process, you just feel stalled out. So here's, if I go with the line of thinking, Paula, that you were saying, throw up my hands, or can it really be God or whatever, then I have to bring the life of Joseph, where he was young and had the dream. His family would bow down to him, and then all this. I mean, don't you think Joseph, when he was sold when his brothers
Had to be
thrown in the
wondering.
pit, he had to have been wondering.
Had to have been wondering,
That
did
must-
I really was that dream really real?
That must have been my imagination. I mean, how many of us have said that?
Oh yeah. Everybody.
And maybe just like us, okay, so he gets sold, he has pretty good standing in the castle or whatever, and all of a sudden the wife charges him with a false accusation of, trying to rape her and all that, and then he's thrown into prison. Don't you, I wonder if ever, because this is the thing, right, we get right to the edge of this is it. How many times have I done something, I'll tell you a lot of times, that I'm like, this next song, this is the song. Straight up, I've said it a million times. Now I don't know how many songs I've released, and none of them have been that song. But they've all served their purpose.
They've been that song for somebody or somebody's.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
see, can I just say, I think God is at times trying to strip us of our own self desires, because I'm telling y'all, I had high aspirations in the music world, and I think God needed to, Paul and I have talked about this before, maybe in Bible study we talked about this. He had to make it where a platform was no longer appealing to me. Like, that way if he ever really gave me one, I could handle it.
Yes.
Otherwise it was going to crush me, right?
Yeah.
Because now we know what it's like to be on listen, the minute you step on any kind of platform, there's a whole lot of scrutiny that comes with it. And am I ready? I think back then I would never have been ready. I wear my heart on my sleeve. So somebody'd say anything negative about me, girls, I'd be in a 3-day depression over it. Now I'm just like, well, bless the Lord that I'm this important to the devil.
Right. Well, and then
And you
there's
have to get there.
there's the opposite side of it, that people start putting you on a pedestal,
That's true.
and you in some respects become an idol for people,
That's right.
which is bad. I mean, and if you're not very well grounded and know
Where
why
the
you're
source
there
is.
and how you got there and who is keeping you there, then that's a dangerous place to be. That's why so many people fall.
Right.
Yeah.
Because pride starts coming in. And,
Exactly.
And so, that's always been one of my prayers is, Lord, don't give me anything. I don't want anything. I don't want it if it's going to cause me to be prideful or boastful, or if it's going to become more important to me than you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with that. That's one aspect, right? There's a whole host of other things. I had to learn, there was a season where it never seemed like I had the money. I never had enough money for anything he called me to do, anything. Where you, and I think that's, some of you guys are in that place now where you're waiting on that provisional place. Has God dried up the brook where you are, right? That's where you start
That's
asking,
exactly where I am. That's my that is, well,
That's your
it's not
top
my only frustration, but it's a big one. It's a really big one. And then, and mine is not just like staying out of places. My dream eats.
Well, that's right. Your dream
And
has a
gets
lot of
sick.
expenses.
And so there's really nothing that I can do to stop that. I mean, just to kind of put it
Yeah.
into perspective, my feed bill is $1,000 a month. My feed bill is what a lot of people's mortgage is.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's an everyday battle going, okay, Lord, I'm cool with eating beans and rice, but I gotta feed these
Yeah.
Animals.
I gotta
Yeah.
feed these animals that you've entrusted me with, and that I have to be a good steward of, and they can't do it themselves.
No. Well, and vet bills and
Oh
heaven
yeah,
only knows
I'm
what
telling you, I
else.
walked
Yeah.
out the other day, and
Farriers.
my little 3-year-old filly, her jaw was all swollen up,
Aw.
and I was like, oh my goodness. And I'm telling you, I don't have the money to call out a equine dentist right at the moment, so I laid hands on her.
There
and
you
just
go.
started praying.
But see, look at that,
Yeah.
right? Your first go-to would have been the vet.
Yes. Yeah,
In-
it would
in the
have.
natural-
If I had money in the bank, I would have been on the phone with my vet saying,
Yeah.
I need you to come out. It's a holiday weekend.
I mean, can we be honest? Can we be honest that it's in these moments that we start to see and depend on God different?
Yeah.
Like for daily provision to pay the next bill?
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, y'all know how I feel about that here too, about, Lord, this is your building. I've had to say this is your building. It's open as long as you keep it open.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And he has been faithful. I'm probably a walking testimony today of I stayed the course. And listen, it was never pretty, I can promise you, girls.
Yeah.
It's been very ugly at times, screaming, crying, fighting with the Lord. You know, Jessica. My prayer closet is not meek and mild. It's very loud at times. I've thrown things before. Yet that is intimacy.
Yeah.
That taught me, oh man, God kind of likes it when I bring everything, including my frustrations. So we have financial struggle here, yet you're still seeking the Lord, and you're still above water
Yeah, today.
today. Today.
Day by day.
Yeah.
Yeah, George Mueller, I don't know if y'all have ever read his autobiography. It's a little bitty book. He had orphanages, and he never knew where the money was coming to pay for those kids to eat. And one day, they all sit at the table, his book says, and they're thanking God for the food, and the food's not there. No milk, nothing. And all of a sudden, a milk truck breaks down outside the building. So this is sometimes the way of the Lord,
Yeah.
on full dependence. So then you two speak to your current kind of specific as you want to be frustrations. You've already talked a little bit about it, but let's give them a little more detail maybe. Who wants to go
Go ahead,
first?
Nancy.
Okay.
Nancy.
Well,
You've done a lot of trial and error. Maybe talk about that.
Right.
Some has not worked like you expected. Maybe talk about that.
I started thinking that a floral business might be a way that I could have an income, and it would be something that I would have control over, and I could determine how much physical work that I could do, since I have had issues with my back, and I've had to be on disability for a while and stuff like that. So to actually go back out into the workforce, that's something that I can't do, because they won't allow you to sit to design, because it's all about getting the flowers or the arrangements out the door to make money, and I get that. So I thought, well, if I could do special things, then I could probably limit myself. And then if there's other things they want me to do, then I would probably, have to hire somebody to come help me with the muscle part of it. So, but if it got to that point, that wouldn't be a problem. Well, I decided to do a bridal show, and it was the most bizarre thing that I have ever experienced. So if anybody wants to know how to get married by Sasquatch, just give me a call if that tells you anything. I won't go into all that, but it was just, I had prepared for weeks for this thing and done some really fun things. And so I'm thinking I'm like the only florist there, and it was super, super small, and which wasn't that bad of a deal, but it was like, I think we might have had 20 people come through the whole thing. So after that experience, I just brought stuff home, packed it up, and said, I ain't doing this. And I think it just soured me because of the whole experience, because it was totally opposite of God. I mean, it was just more...
You ended up in a realm of paganism. A lot
Yes,
of that.
big time. And that just, I was like, good heavens, I didn't even know this stuff existed. That's how unsheltered I've been. So, but the people were super, super nice. And so I stayed the whole duration because I had signed a thing that I said I would. So, and I just prayed the whole time I was there. And I just felt like, if nothing else, that was an example that I could set. But in the meantime, I'm trying to launch craft classes. And then I have other things going on. And, of course, all of this creativity that just pops its ugly head up every now and then, quite frequently. So it's like, I feel like I'm in this great big pool, and I have all these things swimming around me. And I almost feel like I'm in a whirlpool, and like things are just going around and around and around. And so I've always had a heart for women, and especially women that are hurting. And so I probably, it's been 4 years ago now, I felt really led that the Lord wanted me to take all these things that I had been creating and morph them into some type of a program that I could use to draw women closer to the Lord for healing. And so I'm still there. And I know a lot of this stuff that I'm doing has ministered to women, because I know some of the women that I've taught in the classroom have been hurting. And this has been a way that I've been able to just, if nothing else, just love on them and encourage them. But I've also had where I just feel like God keeps saying, I want you to go share your story. And so my story is so ugly in some respects. I just wasn't sure how I was going to be able to relate that to people or share that with women. And so this weekend I had gone and visited with my cousin, and her housemate happened to be home, which she's a pastor. And so we went to pick up cakes, and while I was driving along, I was sharing with her because she'd asked me some questions. And so she gave me some input, and it was a confirmation of some things that you had told me, Shelly. And so I was encouraged by that. And she just kind of she asked me how I would share my experience with people. And I told her, and she said, that's it. Mm-hmm. So that helped me too, to know that I'm on the right path as far as that part is concerned.
Well, and I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's fine.
To go back to when you were talking about the craft classes, because you're all kind of in this a little bit. We've talked about this in Dream Big a lot. Sometimes it's trial and error. Mm-hmm. You find all the no's before you find the yes.
Yes, exactly.
And even though, yes, you have had some sweet time in the craft classes, let's be honest that you have felt like they were not it.
Right. Not completely. I think that has that's some facet of what I feel like God wants me to do, but I don't feel like it's just having craft classes.
Right.
There's more to it. It's deeper than that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you and I talk, just one of the things, which is good for all of us, is, and let me say this because y'all know I may forget it in 5 seconds. You're all saying interesting things because you're all almost saying the same thing. And Jessica, you started it, but I have this and I have this and I have this. The old, I'm still having to do the old and the new. And yet I'm sitting here going, yet what if God is not doing away with everything but expanding things? Mm-hmm. And so I think sometimes we don't realize it's all coming to work together at some point. Because I actually, when I was listening to your podcast the other day, I was like, there's a lot of power in your story as a respiratory therapist and all you've experienced. Mm-hmm. as it goes into the end of life planning. Like nobody knows that better than you. So God's may very well be using all of it together. Same way with you. Although they haven't been, because I could have said the same thing about support groups. You know, we've tried some support groups, they didn't go, or the need just didn't show itself. I've had to close those down. Merge, ebb and flow, shift with Jesus.
Yep.
You just keep moving. You just keep slowly moving. And I think for you, you're still learning.
Yeah.
And yes, there's been some no's.
Mm-hmm.
But even in the floral realm, I still look at your floral stuff and I go, that's just beautiful.
Thank you.
And I go, I still think it's bringing a bigger picture together. Whereas a friend of mine keeps saying, Shelly, you like to compartmentalize everything. And y'all know I've done this here. We had a prayer room. We had a worship night.
Yeah.
Why can't I have it all in one room?
Mm-hmm.
But I come from a place and space in our faith that does compartmentalize.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lord is saying, how about you're going to deliver, you're going to worship, you're going to pray, and support in every room you have.
Mm-hmm.
You are the same way. How can I get here, Jessica, if I'm still here?
Mm-hmm.
But what if it's all part of the same thing?
Yeah.
And he's just pulling different elements of each thing in the final product. Girls, there's not we arrive on this side.
Yeah.
No, there's not.
But in our minds, we think there is.
Mm-hmm.
I have said this, it must be nice to be, and I've actually used probably Beth Moore's name more than anybody just because, you know, her teaching led me to Jesus initially. And, she knew when, at a young girl, she wanted to be a Bible teacher, and that's what she's done her whole, and I'm like, that must be nice. Like, it must be nice to know what you're going to do, and you end up doing it forever.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I still feel like, even though y'all probably don't realize I still feel like this, sometimes I still feel like I don't know what I'm doing, like I'm not quite where I need to be.
I told
hate to
somebody
break
the
it
other
to
day,
y'all.
I feel like, I'm 51 years old.
You're
I'm 52.
spring
And I
chicken
feel like
yet, honey.
I'm starting over, and it's like, what do I want to be when I grow up?
For real.
Yeah.
For real.
Well, and I've never really had the opportunity, and I'm 60, we're going to be 66, and it's like, good heavens, I feel like I've lost out on so much, and then I'm thinking, no, because it's the journey,
Right.
it's the
Yeah.
process, it's not the end result, and I don't feel old, and I sure don't act old, so, it's like, I'm going to keep on plugging and keep on doing as long as the good Lord gives me the
just keep
ability to
moving.
do it. Yeah.
Keep moving.
Yeah.
I just wrote that down.
What?
There's not an arrived on this side.
Mm.
Like, I feel like we should have been taught that when we were little.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because everything in society, like you talked about Beth Moore, everything in society says you go to school, you go to college, you pick a career,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you get the perfect family, and you've arrived.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, I've done all those things. I went to school, I went to college, I got the career, I got the family, and I never arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what am I missing? I've got this dream now, and it's like, I should have arrived already.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not biblical. That
That's
statement is not biblical, right?
It's not biblical. But everything in society
But it's ingrained.
Exactly.
says that.
Yep.
And I feel like there's so much hurt and depression in the world because for my age group, I feel like we banked on that, right? By the time I'm this age and I have all these boxes checked off, I will have arrived. And a lot of people my age are now getting divorced, now changing careers, now, and in my eyes, they're all still seeking that arrival. Like, well, I didn't arrive in that marriage, so I'm going to try a different one. I didn't arrive in that career field, I'm going to try a different one.
Yeah.
So that like really spoke to me. I've never heard that before. And I think people need to really realize God didn't design us to be on this earth, but to do anything but disciple.
Right.
Period. End of story.
Right.
Yeah.
My dream doesn't do anything unless it's discipling.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's where I am, is like, I don't feel like I'm discipling in this season.
Same.
You know, like,
Same.
how is my discipling? I know I'm doing the podcast and, you know, I know I've got this book, but like, how is that actually discipling, like, right now? And I feel like that's why I'm in such turmoil is, where's that discipleship? Like, right. That's all I'm here for, period. You know, it's not here to have a family. It's not here to have a successful career.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've gotten that all wrong in this society, you know?
Well, particularly as women, right? So let's be honest there.
Yeah.
As women, we're expected to marry,
Right.
have children,
Mm-hmm.
all of these things. The truth is that may or may not be God's plan for our lives.
Yeah.
Paul talks a lot about singleness.
Mm-hmm.
I tell people all the time, let me tell you what, quit telling young girls to go get married.
Amen.
They need to ask the Lord. They may be called like Paul to singleness, and Paul says there's a benefit to singleness
Yeah.
that we as married women don't get,
Yeah.
because we're tending to a man. What you see, and that's not all bad, and I'm not saying that it is, but it's not everybody's calling. So
We're supposed to pursue Jesus, period.
Jesus is, like Jessica said,
Yeah.
we have pushed on women the wrong things.
I agree. But how, you look at back in the 50s, that was the thing. The woman stayed at home. She didn't have a career, and of course my era that I grew up in with me being in my 60s, whatever the man said went, and and of course I was raised in a home that had so much chaos and abuse growing up that I was cowing down to everybody and everything, hiding. And I still, as an adult, found myself hiding. And I'm just now starting to come out of a lot of that. And it's like you just put up with and put up with and put up with. And
But
I'm
you're making
grateful
a really good
that-
point.
yeah, and it's not supposed to be like that.
No, but okay, so let me ask this question. Y'all are not going to like this question. I'm just telling you straight up. What if this season is personal? Because my last 10 years, and I can only parallel it with what I've been through. Not that you're going to go through the same things, but we've all shared, we've even shared to the point in Bible study of, what do you still do, Paula, that is because of past insecurities?
Yeah, yeah.
I still struggle with whether everybody likes me or, trying to make everybody happy or all of those things, people pleasing, right?
Yeah,
I've come out of
that's
that,
me.
codependence, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Due to high school bullying and things like that, right? But my last 10 years, God was stripping away all of those things until He had to be the only voice I would hear.
Yeah.
In other words, if everybody hated me, if everybody did not like my decisions or what He told me to do, would I still do it? Nancy, what if this season is the peeling back of layers of pain, which you've been through a lot of that
Yeah.
already in the healing group, but I'm telling you, I still deal with it today.
Yeah.
I still deal with the moments of God putting His thumb on something and saying, all right, this is going to be painful, Shelly, but this has got to go. Like, it's impeding your forward motion
Yeah.
with me, and I won't even know it.
I know
Yeah.
the time that I spend creating, I spend a lot of times I'll just sit in quiet and just let God kind of talk to me which to somebody that can't multitask doesn't get it. But my mind is going all
Right.
the time. And whether I'm creating or not creating, I've got it's like having a computer with apps. I have several apps open at the same time. So, but I have learned so much, not only about God, but about myself, about my relationship with Him, about what I truly need and what I don't need. And what I thought I needed was what we were just talking about. I thought I needed a husband and I needed children, and this is what I wanted in my life. And then after 28 years of having my daughter, she was killed in an accident. And then after being married for 43 years, I have a double betrayal, and it's like, okay, God, I could have gotten bitter. I could have gotten angry and blamed God for it. But we have free will. And I know he showed me that he tried to stop things, but we have free will. And people make choices. And sometimes they're stupid choices. And sometimes they're horrible choices. So, and he has been so faithful to me over so many things. And I know losing our daughter helped prepare me for what happened years later then. Yeah. Yeah. And I can see it.
Because even coming from an abusive home, you take on certain tendencies
Yep. Yes.
of survival.
Exactly. Because that's all you know.
Right. So you hide. We
Yes.
talked about the enemy had you hide.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes you still do, and I'm having to pull you out.
Yeah, you have to kick me.
But I've done that too. I've
Yeah.
done that too. Haven't we all done that from time to time where the persecution comes?
Yeah.
I open this building and somebody messages me, "You're hiding."
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hiding right here.
Broad daylight,
In my
right?
little, sometimes I do,
Yeah.
when I know things are stirring around
Yeah.
me, But you've said, Jessica, you are in a season of growing, though, where God is allowing time.
I'm definitely in a season of growing. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Which is still part of the dream.
Right, it is part of the dream.
It's not separate.
Right. You just expect things.
Yeah.
We just put these expectations on ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
He didn't put this on me. He didn't. Now, he's made promises to me that haven't been fulfilled yet. But the pressure is me putting it on myself.
Right.
And I know that. I mean, I think we all know that we're putting this pressure on ourselves. But it doesn't make it any easier.
No.
No, it doesn't.
No, and I just went through that. I think you know that God made me do a lot of shifts here. We had a couple other gatherings that I ended up shutting down. And last weekend was the first weekend I've had in a long time where I could breathe. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Because I was always thinking about what had to be done Monday.
Yeah.
So I couldn't rest in the Lord. The bad thing about that is it stunts my growth in the Lord. Because I write what I hear. When I'm too busy, I can't hear.
Exactly,
Right.
because it drowns it out.
And I know the frustration is, but I was trying to meet some needs. They were all good things, right? And God used them, certainly, same way He is with your lives. But then there's a moment where He's like, here's the thing that's good, but in this season, like, you're not going to do all of these things. I need you to focus on these things. Part of it is even this, the podcasts. And I wanted to speak to your comment, Jessica, about, well, I'm doing the podcast, but how is that discipling? Actually, more than you know. He had, there's a church in New York City. Y'all know I love Times Square Church, listen to them constantly. When COVID hit and everybody went online, that church never complained. That church prepared for the future. That church prepared. People were saved every week in their online services. I'm not sure we're not discounting the way he's moving in the internet, because he told that pastor the net now will be the internet, the fishing net of catching fish. Not that we won't do one-on-one personal. I'm a
Right.
people person. Y'all know I've really pushed back on Zooms and stuff like that because I like being in the room. However, God's challenging me lately. Every radio station, 90% is other nations, not the US of A. And today I'm like, God, am I stewarding that well? Am I feeding those people? Same way. The podcast actually is discipling. It's just not in a way our generation is used to it. So it's not less important. It's just the same importance, because it's the new way he is reaching people.
Right.
And that's why, I had said to you on your text when I knew you were frustrated, just keep doing what you know to do. That's all you can do sometimes is I'm just going to do the one thing I know I'm supposed to do, and you have to hold yourself accountable, right? I've got to put out a podcast every week. It kind of scares me sometimes, and I'm like, nope, consistency, Shelly.
Yeah.
People need consistency. Same thing. You just keep faithfully doing what you know to do until the next thing shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it feels like I'm not doing enough.
Yeah.
I should be doing
Been there.
more. I even said that this week. I said, Lord, I know you told me not to do this and this, but I still feel like I'm not doing enough. Like I'm not reaching enough. Y'all, I'm not sure we're ever going to feel like it's enough.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not so sure that that's not a good thing, too, because I don't want to be satisfied.
Right.
I think he meets our hunger. He's not going to turn away from our hunger to disciple.
Mm-hmm.
But he's going to, but Joseph, remember, what was it? 12 years, 17, I can't remember. He was making a man. I mean, he was making a man who was going to be fully prepared to save people. He was, but he was still using his gift in prison, remember? He was still interpreting dreams, even for stupid people who forgot all about him. Prepare yourself for that one.
No
Yeah.
kidding.
Because, sometimes even today, you try, somebody will be hurting in the midst of crisis, and I get right in the crisis with them, and then I never hear from them again. That feels like such a failure to me. But you can only do what you know to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what are the other frustrations? Because here's the thing that I see. I won't look at anybody. It can cause a wounding. Let's just be honest. Sometimes you feel like God is wounding you.
Hope deferred.
Makes the heart sick.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it's like, I've said to the Lord before, and I'll go first, because I know it's hard for us to admit these things. I have said to the Lord before, aren't you tired of seeing me cry? Yet I know the truth. That's my humanness.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
That's my humanness, but he knows. He's just like, just wait a little longer, Shelly. It's going to be better than you thought or imagined. It's going to be better than you thought or imagined. In the right season. So one day Joseph is. And let's just look at that story of Joseph. He reaches the dream fulfillment. His family comes. They bowed to him. Remember the part of the scripture where he goes around the corner and he's weeping.
Mm-hmm.
Because he sees his family
I
come.
remember that.
He recognized his family. They didn't recognize him.
Mm-hmm.
At the top of his game, of his dream fulfillment, he's still suffering.
Mm-hmm.
See what I'm saying?
Deep ones.
So even though, again, to your point, Jessica, we're not going to have arrived, even when that fulfillment comes, God's going to still have to deal with us personally on some pain, some stuff, because we're still in process personally. And here's the thing, what did I write a while ago? When we talk about the big dream fulfilling a big need, let's be clear, the dream itself is nothing without us in a way. Let me make sense of that. You and I have to be where we need to be to meet the need.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's not all about the dream as much as it is about me, right? Me being prepared to meet the need in a certain season.
Well, it's like the dream is just the tool.
Yes. The mode of operation, maybe?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we
Or the vessel.
are the vessel, so it's really about our growth, our sanctification,
Mm-hmm.
and then service to others.
Right.
Because we can't serve. I mean, one of the things that, and y'all probably seen it, hurt people.
Oh,
Amen.
totally.
Yeah.
Unhealed people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I know personally, like, God has healed me from so much. But until he did that, I was of no use to anyone else. Even though, like you, I was very codependent. It was a lot easier for me to try to fix somebody else than to work
Deal
on
with my own
myself.
self, yeah. Yeah. Matter of fact, helping somebody else distracted me from my own issues.
Yeah, absolutely, same. And so, but sometimes I do think, me personally, I do kind of get caught up on the dream
Oh, me too.
and not the purpose. I mean, in the big picture, like I know what my purpose is. I know I'm not always sure exactly how he's going to use this dream to fulfill that purpose. In fact, I'm not sure at all. I don't have a clue.
I'm with you there.
I think
I'm still
everybody.
swimming.
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know. But it's going to be cool. I know it is. But sometimes I can't get out of the weeds. I find myself just stuck in the weeds. Because I know until I get this, I can't keep going forward. And I think that's frustrating.
Yeah.
That's frustrating.
And it's not that, because everybody in this room, we've all been through our own kinds of pains. And it's not that we have to be 100% healed before God will use us.
No,
Right.
definitely
Right.
not. Definitely not.
Because if that's the case, I need to, pack my stuff.
Yeah, same,
And go
same.
home.
When he first started healing me, it's a process, but that
Oh, yeah.
wound was still very fresh, and it was healing, but it was not completely healed. And is it okay if I kind of
Yeah.
tell what that wound was?
Yeah.
So I had an abortion when I was a teenager, and that was a devastating wound. And I went through a Bible study, and that's actually where I got saved, was in the middle of that Bible study. And so God was really, I had been through the study. I'd completed the study, and I was leading these other women in these studies, and I was being invited to go and share my testimony and share my story. And so he had done a lot of healing work on that wound, but it wasn't totally healed. But yet he was using me.
Right.
And there was one day that I was going with with the ladies who had the ministry that I went through the study, and we were gonna be on a radio program, and we were gonna be talking about pro-life and abortion and things of that nature. And all of my husband's family was at our house, and out of nowhere, and I was going later that afternoon. And just out of nowhere, it's like he just totally blindsided me. My husband says, "Oh, Paula, go and tell him about what you're going to do this afternoon." And like, I was not prepared. I was not prepared. And I actually, I just looked at him, and I got up and I ran to the bathroom in my house with tears running down my eyes, and I'm looking in the mirror saying, "He's not your enemy. He's not your enemy. He's not your enemy."
Was it
But
because it was
it's-
family and not strangers?
Yes.
Yeah. It's always harder.
Yeah. I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I mean, even so, I get, he was using me over here, but I wasn't ready to be used right there.
Yeah.
Right. I get it. Yeah.
It was kind of a little rabbit trail, but
No, that's good because that was part of your process. Matter of fact, are you still teaching? Are you still leading women in that area? Because you might want to go pray about that.
no, I'm not. But I know I should be.
Yeah, I think you should. Actually, I do think. And I meant to message you about that, and I guess I forgot to do it till you brought it up today.
Yeah.
I think because see again, it's the whole story. Mm-hmm. It's part of your process.
Yeah.
So what that has to do with horses, I don't know. My mind.
I don't
is
know
sitting
either.
here-
Other
you know, I
than
think of
who rides
equestrian-
horses? Women.
Yeah.
Women ride horses.
I mean,
And
listen, I have friends in trafficking who want girls in healing, working
Yeah.
with horses as part of their healing process.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
You know,
yeah,
and I've
I
seen
mean,
that done. in
Well, and
areas.
that's one of kind of the one of the visions that I've had is like doing these weekend retreats.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
And we take our horses and we load them up and we go somewhere for the weekend, but yet the purpose of that weekend is healing.
Right.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
how
I
I
haven't
feel.
I have no
Yeah.
idea how that's going to come together, but it's a vision that I
Mm-hmm.
have.
Has that been a back burner thing?
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, this whole thing just kind of I thought it was going one direction, and then
Right.
overnight it did a total like screeching halt and went another direction. And so now I'm just like, I don't know where I'm going. But I know that that's part of it. I know that that's part of it because like as much as I love horses, I'm like you. If they're not going to be used to build God's kingdom, and like you said, and to heal the brokenhearted, to
That's-
bind up those
yes.
wounds, if it's not
Yeah.
going to be used for that, then I don't want it.
Yeah.
Right.
Then I don't want it. I'll get myself back down to my personal horse, and I mean,
Right.
life will be good.
Right.
But-
Less mouths to feed.
Let's
Right?
yeah. Problem solved. But it's bigger than that, and I know that it's bigger than that. I know it's bigger than that.
Yeah.
But it is pretty interesting because I can't tell you how many, and I know there needs to be healing for men.
Sure.
Abortion does not just affect
Exactly. It affects the guys
women.
too.
It affects the men. It affects future children.
Yeah.
My abortion affected my children that I didn't even have yet. And when I'd actually kind of hadn't really thought about it, but when I was leading these studies and I went into prisons and I did them inside the prisons, and like I knew that was what I was supposed to be doing, and that there was a reason that this was my testimony.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't by accident.
Right.
Would I choose it again? Gosh, I want to say no. But at the same time,
God used it.
yeah, He's
Changed it
used
to
it
good.
for so much good.
Yeah.
And, when I have a son in heaven, and I promise you, he doesn't have any regrets. He loves it where he's at. And he's not mad at me. He doesn't, he's not up there holding a grudge against me.
Amen.
So just that thought of being able to somehow
Yeah.
bring those together is very exciting. It's very exciting.
That's kind of what I've been struggling with too, is how to marry I guess it's the call that I feel to work with women to heal and all this other stuff.
Yeah,
That-
because it's
yeah.
like, you're like, I mean, my first thought is, well, what does
Yeah.
horseback riding have to do with that?
Well, and
Well, it's just a
yeah,
tool.
yeah,
Right. And I
It's
say
just a
this,
tool.
listen, I say this all the time. You have a tool belt. Why is it we think we only need one tool in that tool belt?
yeah,
Yeah. Well, and it's the connection.
Poetry
It's the
is a tool.
connection.
Music is a tool. Okay? The newspaper is a tool. The radio station is a tool. The magazine is a tool. I just keep whatever he says make, I make, and they're ready in season and out of season.
yeah,
That's another thing too, is our world of like our expectations in the world. Jessica was talking about. We do need to, be careful, because God is calling a lot of people. We're to minister everywhere we go, right? Everywhere we go, but we do have a habit of withdrawing from the world and just talking to each other.
yeah.
That's never been His plan.
No.
No.
Never. I even this week I was like, Lord, this sweet building He's given us, and I know I'm to raise up leaders, but even in me is the heart of God. I mean, I started weeping over a show that was on the Faith and Family Channel this week about a young girl who was passed around the system, ends up pregnant, decides to have her baby. Her mom was on drugs, and I just started crying, going, Lord, but I'm not reaching those. What, Lord, is there anything in this city I need to be doing outside of what we do in the building? That's still on my heart, because disciples went about the cities and doing things. We all compartmentalize again, right, in our buildings, in our what we call full-time ministry. And some of us are called to be in certain areas that are secular in nature.
Yeah.
And I get a daily devotional from a man who teaches business people how to be Christian-minded in their businesses, Yet we withdraw.
Yeah.
It's never been His way. He doesn't withdraw necessarily.
Yeah.
But something I will say to that is, I do think when we're in the judgment seat, you'll be judged on what your calling was.
Agree.
Yes.
And I think oftentimes, and I'm in a season now where we've joined a church, and I see a need here, and I see a need there, and I see a need here, and I want to do this. I want to do a Sunday school class, and I want to do a women's group, and I want to do this.
But you're not called to that.
And I know, I see the need,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, but God, there's a need. And He's like, that's not your calling.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's not what I'm going to judge you on. Like, you have a calling. I know there's a need, and I've got somebody for that need. And I think we have to remember that, because then we get too stretched thin.
Well, and if
Totally.
we feel a need, instead of allowing somebody else who that was their calling,
Right.
Right.
then we've
Right.
gotten in the way.
Right. And
We've gotten in the way.
Totally agree with that. Totally agree with that.
Yeah.
you,
And yeah.
like, I mean, you saw the need watching the movie, and you feel the need, but it's not your calling.
Right. I can petition if
Yes.
there's anything I need to do.
Right.
But until
It's
I'm
fine
told,
to ask the question.
It's fine to ask the question. But, yeah, and because to your point, there are things that even happen within our city that God has said, nope, not in this
Yeah,
season.
I'm the same
Keep
way.
your head down, Shelly. And that's hard for me, because I like to engage. I like to be involved. And in my years past, I'd have jumped into anything and everything, trust me. And I was tired all the time.
Yeah.
I'm still tired now, but He is constantly having to say, nope, you're not going to go to that meeting. You're not going to that meeting. Like, I need you to just
Focus.
quit looking to the right and quit looking to the left. Now, that's hard sometimes, because my
Yes.
no is so frequent these days, I almost feel guilty about it. And we've talked about that in
Yes.
classes.
Right.
But you have to use it. Become good at no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Become good at no.
Yeah.
So what have we not covered, girls? Because we're probably time for us to be wrapping up.
The one thing I wanted to say was, like, sitting here listening to everyone, whenever I had to have my healing from not being able to have more children, He said to me, him enough for me. If that dream is never fulfilled, is just having God in your life enough. And that's how I feel today. Is I feel like maybe he's stripping me and not letting me have that dream yet, because it was something you said, Paula, and I thought, if that dream never comes true, is God enough?
Right.
If whatever this dream is, I feel like he's called me to, if that never comes true, is he still good? Is he still, not that I'm doubting it, you know, I've had too many confirmations. I know that I know that I have a calling, but let's just say that calling never comes true. Am I gonna be so rooted in him and so trusting in him that even if that doesn't come true, is he still enough?
And I find that's what I've been doing myself in this time, is getting closer to him, listening, just trying to heal. And I mean, I'm so far down the road compared to how I was 2 years ago. So yeah, I agree with you, Jess.
Well, and when you think about it, and I can't remember if it was Jesus or if it was Paul who said this, but he said, you know, like our forefather Abraham didn't see the fulfillment of the promise.
Right.
He was given the promise, and he wanted to see the day out, but he didn't.
Yeah, we don't like that scripture much.
No, we don't. That one's, we're like, ooh.
Can we just pass over that one?
Well, Moses,
But it's the truth.
Moses was given the promised land, but
But he didn't get to go in.
He
He
didn't
got
get
to
to go in.
see it, but he didn't get to enter it.
but
But we're like, well, that doesn't apply to me.
They couldn't even look upon Moses' face.
Yeah.
Because God shines so brightly on him.
Yes.
Like, okay, if that's all I have, if God shines so brightly on
Brightly,
my life
yeah.
that I don't fulfill that promise, but people saw God in me, and that's enough.
That's
for me.
enough. Yeah.
So,
Because here's the reality.
I agree.
If, you know, my little girl dream of singing at the Grand Ole Opry, which is hilarious now because a lot of what I sing isn't even country anymore, so they probably wouldn't even have me on the Grand Ole Opry. But I think the Lord has asked me many times, if that never happens, can I die to all that? I mean, because I get to see y'all. If I had only pursued that, y'all wouldn't even be in this room, right?
Yeah.
If
Right.
I hadn't have died to that desire, then I would have missed so much. If none of our dreams come true in that which we thought it was supposed to be, can I go to my grocery store every week and be Jesus to people? Can I go get gas at the gas station and be Jesus? Would I still look around me and be Jesus wherever I went? Isn't that really
What it's all about.
Yeah.
what it's all about?
Yeah.
Because the dream, my big stage may be in heaven.
Right.
Maybe what I saw was there, you know, as a little girl. Maybe I get to be up there with the saints, and won't that be better than any stage here?
Yeah.
So, like you, Jessica, I believe God will fulfill in time, but He's going to make sure.
That we're ready for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, my first question is, does everybody feel a little better? Because you're smiling a little more, Jessica.
Yes, she is.
I do feel a little better. I think He's revealed some things to me, and hearing other people, you know,
Which is
it always
normal.
helps to know you're not alone.
Right.
Yes, it does.
And in this world, we only put the good out there, and we don't always share the bad. So the devil's like, you're the only one struggling.
Yep.
You're the only one.
everybody's
who can't-
fulfilling dreams but you.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
make it happen. Look at them. They're making it happen.
It's so
over
funny you
there.
say that because I actually told somebody that last night. You know, she was kind of put on the spot, and so she shared a struggle. And, you know, a lot of times people, you know, and we even talked about people have these little pet sins. And as long as those stay hidden, it's bad.
Right.
But when we keep our struggles hidden, that Satan uses those against us
Oh,
too. It doesn't
big
have to be
time.
sin
Yeah.
Right.
in our life. If there's anything that he has convinced us that we can't be open and transparent about, he's using it against
Mm-hmm. Oh,
us.
you
He's
bet.
using it as a weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the minute you talk
But
about
as soon as you
it,
talk about it,
the
you're
light
like,
of
ah,
Jesus
yeah, you're
shines
like, wow.
on it, and you're like,
Yeah.
man, that doesn't have any power anymore.
Yeah.
You know, so then we end up with more.
Well, and a big
patience.
one for me, because I did say provision is my big thing right now. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, yeah, I don't know what. And so when you said, you're right. It's been ingrained in me. If it's God's dream, He'll provide for it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to
Yeah, that's
worry about where the money's
Yeah,
going to
where
come
God
from.
guides,
It's just
God
gonna
provides.
come. And I'm like, because I can't tell you how many times I've been like, okay, God, I don't see it. I don't see it, which is where all the doubt comes in. You're
I
like,
love
okay,
that.
maybe I'm wrong.
I really want to do a podcast one day on sayings that are not biblical, because like the
Oh, that'd be
whole
good.
bloom
There's a
where-
lot.
There's a lot, like bloom where you're planted. I'd like to bury that one too. If that's where God calls you,
Yeah.
Right.
but if it's not,
But if it's not, yeah,
you better get
you better
where you
move.
need to be. Quit telling people bloom where they're planted when they're called to Africa or they're called to here. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and how many times we were talking about earlier that women are told your family is your ministry,
Exactly.
They're a part of it,
and they are.
but not all of it.
But it
all the
doesn't mean
time.
that they're your only ministry.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Good discussion. Good counseling session, girls. That'll be $150.
Just said we were broke, Shelly.
We hope today's episode has blessed you and encouraged you to pursue Christ passionately. To join us again for more encouragement, equipping, and empowering, subscribe to the 320 podcast. We would also like to invite you to enjoy our round-the-clock radio station, Royalty for Real Radio for Women, at royaltyforreal.com. That's royalty, the number 4, real.com.